Many fear, many in Europe, certainly many in Ukraine, fear that he will fall into President Putin's trap, that President Putin will sell the idea of some sort of land deal to Donald Trump, knowing that it's a plan that President Zelensky could never accept, and then Donald Trump would then blame Zelensky for holding the whole thing up, because Donald Trump is keen to get a deal done pretty quickly. So it says watch your step. He'll have to do that, and it does seem though that Donald Trump Martha feels pretty upbeat, positive about things.
Yeah, he's spent a lot of time on the sort of 8-hour plane journey over talking to journalists. He spent 20 minutes answering questions. He was asked by a reporter whether he thought that today would be a breakthrough. He said, I hope so. I think it's interesting the way his language about this meeting has changed over the past week. It was described earlier on in the week as a listening exercise, something that was just the first step, and that there would be other more important meetings that followed. Then we woke up today to a Truth Social post in bold capital letters that this was a high stakes meeting, and now talk about potentially getting a deal over the line today. So
yeah, so there he is. President of the United States of America emerges from Air Force One. Big moment for Trump. But this, of course, is a president who relishes big moments. Indeed, in many ways, his presidency is about creating big moments just like this. And I assume the plan is for him to get to the bottom of those steps and then go off to welcome President Putin to this Air Force base. And there is the picture. Two presidents about to, I won't say decide the future of Ukraine, but certainly talk about the future of Ukraine and have huge influence on what that future is for Ukraine. And although many in Ukraine will welcome the fact that this is happening, that things are moving perhaps towards a ceasefire, there will equally be many in Ukraine who are very worried about what is about to happen. So each of them walk down their respective red carpets and will soon be together. And for Vladimir Putin, he couldn't get here quickly enough, Martha. This is an opportunity for him. Donald Trump has given him that opportunity. He has been a pariah, certainly in the West, and Donald Trump has given him the opportunity to come here and take his place back at the top table of global diplomacy, and that, I guess, is already a victory for Putin, who is just walking behind that jet and is emerging now.
And a little clap from President Trump to announce the arrival of Vladimir Putin.
And there it is, all looked good-natured. They look pretty pleased to see each other. And that man on the left is out of the diplomatic deep freeze, certainly as far as the West is concerned. And it'll be interesting to see if they are going to speak beforehand. James Matthews is with the American delegation. James, tell us the plan. What is the plan? Are they going to speak before they get down to talks?
It would surprise me if they spoke publicly here, Mark. I'm in an event centre where there are two podiums set up with the tagline "Pursuing Peace" written behind. I think that's when we'll hear from both these individuals. I'm very happy. President Trump clapping the arrival of Vladimir Putin and big smiles. You know, this is the superpower moment, the smile and the shake of men who hold peace in their hands, a defining moment for both men.
So the assembled press there, shouting their questions. How can the US trust your word, was shouted at Putin. And if he did answer, I didn't see him answer. And so off they go to these talks, which the Russians have said could go on for 6 or 7 hours. And I would think that is something that the Americans are not prepared for.
Yeah, the White House indicated earlier this week that they expected the talks to last for 3 hours, and I think that's more of the time frame that Donald Trump would be expecting. You know, he does not want to be locked in a room with Vladimir Putin for 6 hours. We can actually hear just above where we are now fighter jets.
There we are, yes.
We can see in the distance.
Fly past. It's just roared over our head. A number of, there it is in the sky is a display of American military might right over Vladimir Putin's head.
Yeah, flying in diamond formation. They left from that joint base Elmendorf-Richardson, and not an unfamiliar sight in this part of Alaska. There's lots of air training exercises around here, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be a few demonstrations of American strength for Vladimir Putin today. Interestingly, on the flip side, I've been told that the Russian journalists who were flying over on the jet chartered by the Kremlin, they were eating chicken Kiev on their way over here, perhaps a dig to Ukraine there.
And the two presidents, extraordinary shot, actually, two presidents together. Off they go for the talks, and they were chatting. I mean, Donald Trump seemed to be doing most of the chatting in the back of that car, but off they go to do a lot more talking. And it really is quite some moment, isn't it? I mean, although the narrative is that Putin asked for the meeting, it was Trump who, and there's the handshake again, it was Trump who allowed it to happen, and allowed it to happen without seeking anything in return, certainly not a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm. You know, Vladimir Putin on US soil, and many people viewed that as a concession of sorts by Vladimir Putin, that he would come to America. But I actually think it's almost the opposite in many ways, because this is exactly what Putin wants. As we've been saying, you know, he was an international pariah. He invaded a sovereign nation. He is wanted for alleged war crimes by the International Criminal Court. And here he is walking step in step with the most powerful man in the world, the US president. And what a picture that is. You know, you can really get a sense of the size of the two men there. Donald Trump is
I think they were there acknowledging the flypast that
right.
just happened. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, Donald Trump, sort of an imposing figure, and he will be wanting to take control of this situation right from the off.
Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine?
So the shouted questions, both presidents deciding clearly not to answer. And James Matthews is, I was talking to James just before the handshake there, and Russian TV, James, have been shouting this very point about Trump sort of allowing Putin back. They've said Trump has brought the Russian leader out of the diplomatic deep freeze and given him the chance to cajole the American leader face to face. And so there's no question that Putin and the Russian media are very pleased by what Donald Trump has allowed Putin to do here.
Yes, Mark. I mean, who can deny this is so far, and we're a couple of minutes in, but who can deny that this is very much a victory for Vladimir Putin? We've seen nothing less in extraordinary scenes of a man, an aggressor, an international pariah, who's wanted as a war criminal in countless other countries, indicted by the International Criminal Court, who has launched, in the build-up to this meeting, has intensified on Ukraine. And this same individual, this aggressor, arrives at this airbase and is applauded onto the tarmac by the United States President. There was nothing less than a military flyover for Vladimir Putin. You know, the outside world, Ukraine, European allies, they're looking at this and they want a robust US president. They certainly want a neutral starting point for discussions. But what they have seen there, you know, the optics of that, the warmth displayed by Donald Trump, everything the optics say about the power dynamic in that relationship, that's not going to go down well for people looking on in Kyiv and elsewhere. And, you know, the two men, they went into the Beast together, the back of the Beast. Putin, interestingly, escorted down the red carpet by very close personal security. But now, you know, they get into the meat of the matter. But I think just in terms of the spectacle that we have seen so far, if anybody thought this was going to be a US president, you know, putting the boot in, laying down red lines, being tough with Vladimir Putin, they will be uneasy at the scenes that we have just witnessed.
Yes, and Ivor Bennett is with the Russian delegation, and Ivor, I mean, obviously the Russians won't see it this way. They won't see it as, you know, bringing Putin back from the cold. How will they see it? How do they view this summit?
No, I think they do see it as a big win. When the summit was announced last week after Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow, where that deadline was looming for Russia to agree to a ceasefire or sanctions, and then that invitation for a summit emerged and Vladimir Putin adeptly dodged that deadline. One popular Russian newspaper, it ran the headline simply, "Putin won." It was very triumphant, a lot of the coverage claiming that Putin had bought time, another kind of expert maneuver from the master negotiator, playing his opponents like a fiddle to get what he wanted here. And so they are making, you know, they're not hiding from the fact that they see this as a big win for Russia, and this is exactly the moment that Vladimir Putin wanted. As Jay said, it is a meeting of great powers. He's being seen as an equal. Donald Trump, as you see, has rolled out the red carpet for a man who's wanted for war crimes. This time last week, Donald Trump was threatening sanctions on Russia, but he's invited him here as a guest, welcomed him here for a summit, despite Vladimir Putin offering no concessions whatsoever. And it doesn't look like from these pictures, the start of this meeting, that Donald Trump has any intention of getting tough and threatening more sanctions on Vladimir Putin. One thing that was interesting that you've mentioned, Mark, is that comment from the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov on the way here that they plan these talks to last for 6 to 7 hours, longer than the White House had scheduled them for. I think that kind of points to two things, perhaps, that Russia is framing this as a very significant juncture in US-Russia bilateral relations. That's partly why I think Putin stopped off at that war memorial on the way here in the in Russia's Far East, a war memorial that honours US-Soviet cooperation in World War II. He's signalling what he wants to get out of this summit, which is the start of a great new chapter in US-Russia relations. I think it also shows that Vladimir Putin hopes to kind of bamboozle his opponent here and the US delegation. Putin is known for being across all the details, all the facts, all the legal arguments, all the history, and Donald Trump is the opposite, and Vladimir Putin will know that. He will seek to exploit that. He will try and get into all those legal arguments and run rings around the US delegation to try and convince Donald Trump the quickest path to peace is a deal on Russia's terms.
Yeah, okay, Ivor, thank you very much. Joining me now is Ole Shamshur, who is former Ukrainian ambassador to the US. And I just wonder, Ambassador, what do you think when you watch these pictures of Donald Trump shaking hands with Vladimir Putin, the two of them going off in the same car for talks and lunch and so forth? What are your thoughts?
Well, frankly speaking, and unsurprisingly, it was almost hallucinating seeing the leader of the democratic world tapping the hand, almost chumming up with the war criminal, aggressor, killer. It was, in a way, it was even, frankly speaking, disgusting. And it only strengthens my apprehensions as far as the possible outcome of the meeting is concerned. As I'm quite sure it augurs quite bad for Ukraine and for establishing really a lasting peace in Ukraine and avoiding further conflagration on the European continent.
I mean, do you have trust in the man who was in our picture there, Donald Trump? Do you have trust in Donald Trump to do the right thing by your country?
Well, I cannot speak for the leaders of my country, but I have very serious doubts, and I have been always critical of Donald Trump in general, and as far as his approach to Ukraine and to war in Ukraine is concerned. And I think that what we have seen, it only strengthened the argument that Trump definitely clings to the idea of having possibilities to speak with Putin, not as an adversary, not as with an enemy, but as a partner. And I think that one of the issues which will be discussed, that will be the issue of revamping, refurbishing U.S.-Russian relations. And definitely Putin knows how to play on the false ideas, illusions of Donald Trump, who really wishes to implement some absolutely, in my view, illusionary economic projects or trying to revamp the rules of the world politics with Russia or to drag Russia off China. Definitely, Putin will be playing all those cards. And as I said, it augurs quite well, quite bad for the possible outcome of this meeting for Ukraine.
There's lots of talk about territory. Donald Trump has talked about land swaps. Putin seems to want the rest of Donbass. I think it's about 18% or so that you still have. Putin wants that. Would Ukraine ever give that up?
Well, definitely there is a difficult reality on the front, but definitely were quite adamant to not to allow further violation of our territorial integrity. What wants Putin is to add the Donbass to the land grabs he already made in Ukraine, occupying a new territory in addition to the territory and to Crimea occupied in 2014. The public opinion of Ukraine is definitely would like to end this war, but we cannot end the war at no matter at the basis of no matter what. Because it should be understood that if the world, the United States, Europe allows Putin to implement even the part of his plan for Ukraine, that would be the prelude to the new war, new aggression of Russia. And in this case, it would encompass not only Ukraine, but enter so-called the Article 5 territory, the territory of the European members of NATO.